Hello and welcome back to the Story Kiosk, a community podcast sharing short, true stories written by you, our listeners. I'm your host, Julian. It's been a little while since our last episode. Life has a habit of getting in the way, doesn't it? But I'm very happy to be opening the kiosk window again today and sharing a new story. And on that note, if you're listening and have ever thought about writing a story, consider this a gentle reminder that submissions are always open. We'd love to gather another big batch for the next run of episodes. But today's episode is about memory and about the strange mnemonic power of music to bring people back to us. You might remember that this podcast was greatly inspired by the National Story Project, the collection of true stories gathered by the late novelist Paul Auster and broadcast on American radio around the turn of the century. One of the most memorable stories in that project, and the final entry collected in the tie-in book True Tales of American Life, was also about the power of radio. It feels nice and fitting to make a sort of meta connection in this episode of our little project. Our story today comes from first-time contributor Barbara Porritt. It begins with the last few notes of a song playing on the radio and the memory it awakens. So, without further ado, today's story is titled My Father's Dance. I remember him now, my dad, who has been dead these past 3 years. Sometimes this happens. Something sparks a memory. Today it is the last few notes of a song on the radio, a lamenting male voice singing about dancing with his father again. My dad often danced, and I see again the scene that I first saw with a young girl's eyes. I am watching my father almost make a ballet out of the act of boiling a few eggs. He slices an uncut loaf in perfect time to the music, producing soldiers that I would later dip into a soft, golden yolk. He always had the radio on, playing in the background. This was the 1970s, but my dad would listen out for the golden oldies from the 50s. Crooners singing about being lonesome tonight, or a picture painting 1,000 words. My dad was a small man, neatly dressed, and he stood out amongst the worn-down people on the council estate where we lived. He had a movie star handsome face, and his dark hair was swept back like a raven's wing to frame his deep, brown eyes. He was a good-looking man. Thinking back now, as a grown woman, it is clear to me that he knew it too. I see him in my mind's eye. My dad moving around our shabby kitchen, picking up a knife with a flourish, flicking a tea towel over his shoulder, singing along and moving in time. He had an odd little foot shuffle, where every now and again he would lift a leg, bend it at the knee, and then move it back and forth, before lowering it back down to the worn linoleum with a flamboyant little flick of the ankle. He would spin and turn as he produced my Saturday lunch of a perfectly boiled egg. I feel again the deep love that would always well up in me back then, rising up and warming my heart. My appreciation of my dad looking after me, feeding me, making my favourite weekend meal. But his performance, his display of joy and lightness, was also a way of feeding me. It showed me that even when life is hard, a person can choose to listen for a favourite tune, have a dance to it, and that, regardless of how shabby the lino is, it can still make a great dance floor. I have tried to remember this as I have navigated my life, tried to find joy over the past almost 6 decades, even when life was hard. I take a long breath in now and slowly release it. I stand to take my empty cup to the sink, rinse it under the tap, and place it gently onto the draining board. My ears tune back into the radio. A song that I like is playing. I step away from the sink and have a little dance, and I even try that little foot shuffle. It feels wonderful. Thank you again to Barbara for sharing that sweet story. I think many of us have moments like that, when a smell or a sound or a song suddenly opens a door back into the past. And more often than not, those memories aren't grand events at all, but small, precious, glittering domestic moments. A kitchen, a radio playing, someone making breakfast on a lazy weekend morning. And in honor of Barbara's dad, maybe the next time you're standing at the kitchen counter, waiting for the kettle to boil or the eggs to cook, you might give that little foot shuffle a try yourself. If you have a story of your own that you'd like to share with us, whether it's funny, nostalgic, sad, surprising, or anything in between, you can find all of the submission details on our website, www.storykioskpod.com. And if you'd like a small prompt just to get your pen moving, here's one for this episode. Write about a memory that's tied to a particular sound or song, something that takes you back instantly to a place or a person. Maybe it's a wedding number, a night out in a dingy karaoke bar, or, like Barbara, a tune on the radio. With any luck, we'll be back again soon with more stories from the kiosk. So if you haven't already, please consider subscribing or following the podcast so you don't miss out on the next episode. But we'll wrap things up there for now. Thank you for listening, and wherever you are in the world right now, we wish you a good morning, a good day, or a good night. See you next time.